Therein lies your answer. If you want to do a valuation in euros and you want a euro risk-free rate, even if the company is a Greek company or a Spanish company, you know what you should use as your risk-free rate? I would use a German 10-year government bond rate as my risk-free rate. Not because it's German, but because it's the lowest of those 10-year government bond rates. I'm trying to get as close as I can to a default-free rate, and that probably is as close as I can get. So let's assume that you've got a euro risk-free rate now, and you want to try an even more difficult task. You want to get a risk-free rate in nominal reais. So first step is the same. You find a 10-year government bond denominated in reais. The Brazilian government has those bonds. And at the time that I did this analysis, that rate was 9%. Is that my risk-free rate? Well, before I use it as my risk-free rate, I have a check to make, right? Is that a default-free rate? Now that's a tough question to answer. So I used a proxy. I don't know whether you're familiar with Moody's and S&P, but these are ratings agencies that usually rate corporations for default risk. They also happen to rate sovereigns. Basically, they tell you how much default risk they see in sovereigns. So I went to the Moody's website. I looked up the rating for Brazil. And guess what? Brazil is not a AAA rated country. There is default risk in the country. Based on its rating, I looked up a measure of how much default spread I would charge for investing in a Brazilian bond. Now, this requires an assumption, so we'll talk about how to estimate this default spread. But in the case of Brazil, the default spread I estimated for the government was 1.75%. You're saying, where are you going with this? Remember, the government bond rate was 9%? That was a rate that incorporated the default risk that investors see in Brazil. By my estimates, that spread should be 1.75%. I'm going to subtract out the 1.75% from the 9% to come up with a risk-free rate in nominal reais of 7.25%.